It's just a story called The Massive Rat. My wife strapped in Freddie, shut the door and turned towards me. I have a 10 o'clock meeting with Patrick Beeman to discuss what needs to be done. I suppose I nodded. Freddie wanted me to do my flesh-eating zombie thing, but after Lorna's declaration, it was beyond me. She said something else that I heard but didn't really hear, climbed into the car and drove off. Freddie looked through the back window. His puzzlement gave me the strength to muster a weak smile and a wave. Lorna's parting words then drew into focus. Trouble with you is you begin too many sentences with the word I, she'd said. I stayed on the drive, contemplating the sequence of spiteful dares that had led to this point of no return, until the sky began gobbing warm rain, faster and thicker. Upstairs in my office, lists were waiting, lists of lists. Oh, Jesus, the paperwork ahead. I couldn't face it and ran around the side of the house, down the garden and into the shed. On a half-empty tub of weatherproof paint, I set out a berserking shower. I'd never do anything stupid. I mean, how could I scarf Freddie? But the thought of 10 packets of Nurofen Express waiting in the back of my bedside cupboard was a reassuring one. When Freddie's scarecrow was dripping dry in the sun, I found a mismatched pair of gardening gloves and a trowel, and attacked the knotweed and nettles and docks choking the veggie patch. I dug it last year during the banking crisis when the age of supermarkets was looking a bit shaky. Who'll end up eating these courgettes and spuds and onions now? Courgettes, zucchini? No, that's an eggplant. Is it? No. Right first time. Don't second guess yourself, Mitchell. Our back garden is long, thin and mature suburban with a copper beech at the end. Lorna says trees have no business being dark, but its bruised maroons and shimmering there-nows always steady my head. Freddie wants a treehouse, and I always meant to build one in the copper beech. Nothing fancy, just a sort of tree-borne raft like the one me and David Ockridge built in his dad's back garden when we were kids in Black Swan Green. In my daydream, I'd tell Fred that the copper beech is guarding his prezi, and I'd watch him run down and find the rope ladder and climb up to a better, leaf-shushed world. The thought of another man building Freddie's treehouse in an ordinary green beech made me hurl my trowel through the shed window. Shark fins of crashing glass followed the trowel, and after an immobile minute I shouted, "You stupid effing idiot!" Now I'd have to invent one of my one-legged excuses. Freddie still believes them, probably, but Lorna would think, yeah, right. I have to be more careful. The biro of Patrick Beeman will hover over his legal pad. How does your husband's passive aggression tend to manifest itself, Mrs. Breyer? And she'd reply, I prefer to be called by my maiden name from now on. It's supposed to be a deeply sad story about a couple drifting apart, and I'm just getting laughed over. I partly wrote this when Tom and I first met in Toronto. He just read one of his brilliant short stories about a couple who had already got divorced, and sort of the imp of envy and said, the imp of envy within said, I want to do something like that. So this is sort of my most Barbashian story, but not a comedy, people, okay? The weeds on the compost heap. I began feeding the shrubs with the weeds on the compost heap. That's an awful sentence, isn't it? Blimey. I'm glad this hasn't been published. It's just around the two clauses of the sentence. One's got a different subject, and it just doesn't work. I'm going to fix this right now, because this is just ridiculous. Put the weeds on. Put the weeds on then.
I think, given the reading, I should begin by asking you about rats. So.
Rats, yeah. I had a rat's day, didn't I? Rat. What did you say about rats?
Or else, I think I was going to ask about whether there's a sense when you look at each book, there's such a each book is a departure from the previous one, and there must be some pressure when you write each book as it's a success to write something that's similar and build on it, and especially after Cloud Atlas, I would imagine. And it's a different trajectory, of course, to do a coming-of-age novel after you do the sort of big, ambitious book. Yeah. But also then you do something completely different, and maybe that's the challenge. You know, in a sense, I think each time you put a new challenge in front of you, and perhaps it just becomes exciting. I mean, that in Jacob de Zoet is really your first third-person book. It's the most deeply historical. But if you could talk about, I guess, when you're done. And I know from talking to you, I think, or I'd also like to ask that question, how far in advance are you planning your books? And what sort of a sense, is there a sense of doing something entirely different when you're done with one?
Great, Tom, thanks, yeah. About 3 questions.
Yes.
I'll try and hold them all in my head.
Begin with rats.
Rats are useful animals. I don't have much to say about rats, really. Maybe we'll come back to them later. So how far ahead do I plan novels?
Or maybe start with, is there a sense of wanting to do something, when you finish Jacob de Zoet, was there a desire to do something different? As you finish each book, is there a desire, okay, I want to do something entirely different? Yes,
there is. I just have to expand on that answer a little bit. Yeah. Do you sometimes get a bit alarmed, Tom, how there's lots of writers our age out there working, even more in their 30s, in fact, but relatively few in their 60s and 70s still writing really vital, worthwhile work, writing anything, still getting published. And I think about this and get mildly concerned about literary longevity. How do the ones who are still out there, how do they do it? Still really writing good work that you pre-order with your local bookshop. I almost said pre-order with Amazon, but I mean local bookshop because it's really important to support local bookshops because they're great. Yeah. But not that many. I mean, writers in their 60s still doing really great work rather than local bookshops. And I think you can fade away by repeating your big success again and again, and diminishing returns kick in. And also, why bother? You've done it once already. You perceive that there's some pressure there, but this is sort of one of the joys, in a way, of being a literary-ish writer rather than someone writing a sequence of stories starring the same detective.